On behalf of everyone here at VATUSA, good evening and welcome to the VATUSA Town Hall 2021. This year, during our annual updates, we're going to be giving some innovative insights into air traffic and support services, showcasing featured opportunities and the latest news to get you inspired. You're going to be connecting with VATUSA staff to get your questions answered. Our featured speakers tonight include Manny Manigold, VATUSA 1, followed by VATUSA 2, 3, and 12. The entirety of the VATUSA staff will be taking your questions. Air traffic controllers, pilots, and staff, we are VATUSA. Don't forget to follow us on all of our social media networks. My name's Nick Watkins, and I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager for VATUSA. I'll also be your host for this evening. Let's get into it. So welcome to the VATUSA 2021 Annual Town Hall. Like I said, I'm Nick Watkins, the VATUSA 11 Marketing and Communications Manager for the division. Here with several folks from the division tonight, and we'll be getting into the meeting first with the agenda. First up, we've got Manny, VATUSA 1, giving a division outlook and division updates, followed by an air traffic services update, a training department update, updates from the support services department, question and answer period, followed by an open floor, before closing it out with America the Beautiful and our credits. Let's go ahead and meet the featured speakers for tonight. First up, we've got VATUSA 1, Mr. Manny Manigold. Manny's going to be followed by VATUSA 2, Wes Miles, the Division Air Traffic Services Manager. Then VATUSA 3, Anthony Stanastasio, the Division Training Manager. Finally, following up with VATUSA 12, Blake, Data Services Manager, and he'll be sitting in for Braden tonight, who's unable to make it. Right now, I'd like to go ahead and hand it off to our VATUSA 1 Division Director, Mr. Manny Manigold, who's going to give us a division outlook, controlling hours by airport and operations by month, rating distribution, and the top RTACs by hours and by growth. Mr. VATUSA 1, Mr. Manny Manigold. Manny, take it away.
Microsoft Flight Simulator 2020 and the pandemic continue to be the two key drivers in growth in controlling hours and growth in focus 30, the designated airfields traffic levels. And at the start of January 2021, my initial goal was to hang on to much of the pandemic growth as possible. If you remember, year over year from March 2020 to March 2019 to March 2020, we experienced a doubling in growth in both controlling hours and designated airfield traffic levels. We responded by focusing on changing our F&O format, and we also were focusing on getting the academy up and running as soon as possible to open some training bandwidth. As of August 21st, we started building on top of the pandemic base. I'm taking a look at some of the preliminary figures for September 2021, and if the trends hold, we're going to be experiencing a 10% growth off of the March 2020 pandemic base. So some of our challenges now is what to do with our growth in observers. Our observer base has doubled from the start of the pandemic. And the blue line represents the growth in observers. And look at that rate of change. It's almost become parabolic. So far, the growth rate in observers has not translated into similar growth rates in the S1 population, S2, S3, and the C1 populations. So I'm looking forward to the success of the Academy. It went live recently, and hopefully that will open up some training bandwidth and will increase the speed to competency to the C1 level to prevent C1 burnout, which I think is a key contributing factor to lack of C1 retention. That and some challenges with the growth in the pilot population. A large part of the new pilots, they're probably not used to controlling online. That's given us a lot of challenges in the controller population. Also, the C1 rate has been flat relatively when you compare it to the other ratings. We have a 13% growth rate in C1, and we have a 25% growth rate in the instructor rating. And it may
Open
be
floor.
even more than that when you consider that there's some positive attrition out of I1 and probably C1 as well when people are promoted to supervisor levels, I3, and other ratings. So, our major focus has been to increase controlling uptime to respond to the increased levels of traffic in our airspace. And I wish to recognize VNY, VBW, VDC, VLA, and VTL for growth in raw controlling hours. Likewise, I wish to recognize Salt Lake, Boston, New York, Memphis, and Chicago for year over year growth. Salt Lake, as a matter of fact, doubled their growth rate from 2021 to 2020 to 2021, and that should be definitely recognized. Also, we launched social media channels in 2021 to increase our outreach. We're also attempting to update some of our oceanic policies. I've been working with VATPAC and VAT New Zealand and the Oakland RTEC to revise our Pacific Partnership LOA. Cody and Shane, they've been working with EJ over at VATCAR to update the NASA LOA. Some of our upcoming priorities, Gcap is going to take the lion's share of our attention once that's passed. And VATUSA this past year has been heavily represented on the Gcap committee. Myself, Drew, Carla, Rick Rump, Anthony, we've all been on the committee, and the committee has been very responsive to the feedback from all of the divisions. It's definitely been a learning experience for me because it's easy to get in your VATUSA bubble and not recognize that one size definitely doesn't fit all for the various divisions. And they've all brought forth their opinions, their issues, and I think we have a very good policy. I want to thank you all for leaving your feedback, and I want to thank Matt Bartels for listening to our feedback and incorporating it in subsequent drafts. Another priority of ours is going to be to deepen outreach to not only pilots, but the streamers and the general flight sim community. I don't anticipate that the growth rate is going to slow down anytime soon. And then finally, a focus is going to be to get the professional development started and up and running to find new leaders to take all of our places when we leave VHQ. We want the hobby to continue and to continue in the optimistic trend it's been moving in. And so hopefully we'll be able to build that bench strength, provide some leadership training, and decrease the amount of time it takes to find replacements on staff. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Wes, and he will give the air traffic services update.
First of all, thanks for everybody for showing up and like Manny said, spending time out of your Sunday. As far as our traffic services go, we've obviously we had some priorities when we first came into this year, which I think we've hit a lot on the head. We've also missed the mark on a couple of things, which I'll talk about. Kind of the elephant in the room being the events. First of all, we implemented a new Fno strategy. I think it's been largely successful for the most part. we've hit a couple of snags, and we see a couple ways that we can keep coming back to it and kind of freshen it up a little bit. And one of those being obviously the event, the most recent event with Kennedy area. I know you guys we've been fielding questions, we've been fielding comments and concerns about that. Um, and I think we identified an area that we need to look at and obviously freshen up the policy a little bit. So, with that said, we went into it knowing that we were going to have to make changes eventually, and we'll kind of cross those bridges as we get there. And we've identified a bridge that we need to cross. So, we're going to do that. But as far as the rest of this year goes, we came a long way with establishing sort of putting everybody's job titles or job responsibilities in policy. Some of the goals going forward next year are going to be just trying to make the staff or the subdivisions, the RTEX staff job a little bit easier in the form of we want to make sure that we clearly lay out the processes to follow going forward with various events or various situations. Right now, there's a lot of ambiguity. We get a lot of questions, we get a lot of disagreements, and we kind of want to make that whole process a little bit smoother. So, going into next year, one of our goals is to do that and to have guidance laid out there, at least as a starting point for our ATMs and our DATMs and our training administrators to kind of follow. That'll standardize the process. One of the other things we're working on, actually, Drew took this bull by the horns, is the process for getting FOIA requests satisfied and completed. He found a very good process. He made a lot of headway with the FOIA committee, and we finally hit a point where we're ready to put something in policy that will help standardize our requests and actually get us the information that we're looking for, as opposed to having all these different RTACs, all these different people contact the FAA trying to get information. He's been very successful into that, and we're going to be looking at implementing that next year. One of the other things, and I'm going to be remiss if I didn't include this, is we do have a community of people specifically, and I'm going to call him out, Mr. Kyle Sanders. He came up with some software that's going to make the FA's job a lot easier at each RTEC. And what it does, and I'm not very, I mean, he would be the best person to talk about this, and we'll probably present this here coming up. But to give you guys a little sneak peek, it's software that automates a lot of the process for making sector files. And whether it's used by each facility, whether it's not, that'll be up to the ATMs of each facility. But we want to make the software available. We want to offer it as a service at the VATUSA ZHQ level, and we're going to look at implementing that as well. And that is the goals for air traffic services within the next coming year. Mr. Manny, I'll return it back to you.
Thank you, Wes. And we're going to turn it over to Anthony to give us a training services update. Anthony and Meg.
Hello, guys. All right, so my presentation will take approximately 135 minutes, no intermission. So are we ready? Oh,
Let's
that's
do
right.
it.
That's right. They can't speak. This is amazing. This should be in my classroom. Just so you know how my night is going, before this presentation, I made a pot of coffee, and I forgot to put the coffee grounds. So it was literally just a pot of hot water. So that is exactly how today has been going. Actually, it's been going pretty well. This weekend, we had our homecoming, so I can finally start to put some of the 3-week hell that was behind me. Oh, there I am. You can see my wonderful face. So a couple of quick updates. I don't know if you happen to notice any time over the last year and a half, nothing major has been going on, but one thing in particular was the launch of the training academy, which I just perusing the names of the 127 of you who are kind of listening, there's a good percentage of you who all had some piece of the action with the creation, whether you know it or not, with the creation of this training academy. Meg and I were very fortunate to try and create this culture of communication and collaboration. And you notice that we're pretty active here on Discord, and we post meaningfully when we need to in the forums. And it's paid huge dividends, because with all the conversations that I've had privately with friends, with people who I've just met, who I can consider friends now, it has all helped to shape the scope of what this academy at least was at launch. And I know that Meg and I have fully believed that how it is today is going to be obviously not as good as it will be tomorrow, and the day after that, and the day after that. And this is really your baby. And that's, I think, the biggest message that we want to send to you guys. This isn't a me thing. It isn't a Meg thing. It isn't, in my opinion, it's not a Manny West thing. It is the people who are here in the moment. Yes, we created it, but honestly, for a lot of you fledglings, the OBS S1s who might be listening in, and S2s, S3s, or the C1 who's just waiting for their moment in time to eventually take a position like US3 in the future, I hope that this stays around for a very long while, and I hope that you guys all just continue to make it better. As far as some of the feedback, what we've started doing is the group training sessions with, by the way, you're all welcome to attend immediately at the end of this at 9 o'clock Eastern, is when we have been doing for the last 4 weeks or so, group training sessions. It's been really well, decently attended, but really well. The focus is, and the dividends of it has been tremendous in terms of being able to provide additional instruction from the division level, and to help us support the facilities in all the ratings training. I just informally talking with a lot of the instructors and TAs and mentors from all the facilities, who actually I've been able to get to know pretty well. It seems as though, just again, as an informal poll, it seems as though things are accelerating, things are moving more quickly with the academy. And we'll know this more with a formal survey that that Meg and I actually will propose to you guys sometime within the next couple weeks. And I was very happy to hear that, because they felt like the student coming into the facility was a lot more prepared. And because of that, they didn't have to spend as many sessions trying to get them up to snuff before the S1. Everything was moving more smoothly. And of course, that makes the mentors and instructional staff lives a lot easier, which could help with a burnout factor later down the pike. But not going to raise any flags and shoot the fireworks off yet. But I think early indications are that we're in pretty good shape. In the previous slide, which you do not have to go back to, Nick, because all of that stuff is actually in the forum. There is a post that I have in the forum that is specific to the instructional staff, but I will be making it public once we also get the feedback from you guys. What Meg and I are planning on doing, I don't know if you guys keep track of this, but starting around October is about a year that both of us assumed this position. And in the year, I would say it's safe to say that we focused predominantly on onboarding new controllers, creating a culture that we felt was very appropriate for what we wanted to accomplish, did things here and there. And I think we're looking forward to a year two, where the year two would be now at the other end of the spectrum. So the people who are more the S3s, the C1s, and addressing them specifically. But we were going to send out a survey and get your opinions, and be on the lookout for that. We would love to know what you believe the goals of the training department be for the next 365 days. And then once we correlate all of that information, we'll update the post that I have right now for the instructional staff and make that public on the other side of the forum, so that you guys can keep track of our to-do list, stuff that we've accomplished and stuff that we are in progress of accomplishing. And that helps to keep us on track and in focus, so that we're not scattered about and we're not aimlessly trying to figure out what it is next that you guys need. So that's in the forum. That will be in the forum. Be on the lookout for that. In the slide that, actually, can you go back to that previous slide, Nick? You went ahead one slide. If you can go back one slide, I know there's a delay, so let me just talk a little bit. In the previous slide that you're going to get to is going to be a graph on the left-hand side. And this is pretty neat, because I wanted to show you, just if you're a numbers person, a data person, thanks, Nick. If you're a data person, this is pretty cool. So we've had a number of these exams taken. And if you look at the dark blue is the average of the pass-fail rate of the old test. And then the light blue is the average pass-fail rate of the new test. Now, one could say that it's attributed to the fact that perhaps the new test is easier, but I guarantee you and promise you that none of these tests are easier than the previous ones. In fact, the previous ones stunk so much, it was about as bad as my kid's dirtiest diaper that ever existed. The new tests are actually, halfway decent. there are flaws and there are a couple things that we had to fix, but I am particularly happy with the basic ATCS1. And you guys are hitting it out of the park. I don't know if it's because of the material that you're studying or you just keeping it, you re-envision more focus. Maybe it's just the batch of people we have. Numbers only tell one part of the story, but I will tell you that it does appear as though we are on the right track. And so we just have to keep on going, keep on analyzing, always be very cyclical. And as a musician, you know that as you play, you're constantly criticizing and then making adjustments all in real time. And that's precisely what we will be doing as we move forward. And at those group sessions, by the way, provide you an opportunity to communicate with us one-on-one. So it's not like we're sitting in some perch where you barely know who we are. We're always very much in your face. So sorry, but not sorry about that. Thanks, Nick. If you could advance it one slide. The right side just tells you the amount of attempts. The left is the average. I can give you more hard numbers if you really want, but those are boring. Training surveys, I talked about that. Training policy. So literally, this has been a year-long project because I've been trying to update the training policy. And there are so many things that I need to add because there were a couple of things for a while. And this is not any particular predecessor's fault. It's just literally a lot of things have, just because of the hustle and the bustle, a lot of things tend to be word of mouth. A lot of things tend to be exception driven. We wanted to develop a training policy that was really all encompassing and that really would be somewhat substantiated or substantial so that it could help future generations really understand the gig and understand exactly what we're trying to do. That is an enormous accomplishment. And to be honest with you, I had been dragging my feet in the sand because of the Academy project, but with Gcap, wherever it is around the corner, it stands to reason that we should probably wait until we all cooperate whatever it is that comes down the pike with that, and then we can release a policy without releasing a policy and then amended it afterwards. The S3 C1 courses, yeah, I know they're not terrific. They're better than what was there before. I can tell you that tenfold. I mean, what was there before was basically nothing. So you're still getting material, still getting training. We still rely very heavily on the facilities who are doing a phenomenal job in teaching those particular subject matters. But I can tell you that we have now probably over 60 people within the Academy work group. And that's also that was just the front end. I gotta be honest with you, we have probably way more than that amount of people that I have had, that I've granted editor access. People who are qualified, of course, people who are vetted, but also people who are contributing in writing lesson material and submitting grade or submitting questions for the exams. It truly is a collaborative effort, and I don't want anybody to think that this is me or this is Meg or any of us. It's really all of us. And so I really don't want to stand in the way of people who can contribute, and that's why I really try and solicit that as much as possible. If you've noticed in the forum, also here on Discord, we posted a Google form that you could fill out. Submit your own questions, anything, any level. And I don't care what level you are rated. You could be an S1 student, but let's be honest here. We all know that there are S1 VATSIM people who've literally been working traffic for 15 years. Or I can tell you, there's one person that comes to mind who's, I don't even know, is S2, S1, who's like an advanced meteorologist who does hurricane weather. For him to submit a question on weather just because he's a quote S1, of course I want to accept that. So, we vet it, we make sure it's good. And of course, when you submit your question, make sure it's got references. But literally anybody and everybody should take a piece of this action because this is your playground. There needs to be a point of quality assurance. There needs to be a point of when there's a discourse between both sides, there needs to be someone to say, we're going this direction. And that's where we, the people here speaking and beyond, that's where I believe our role exists. However, you are the ones that really make things work. And I'll use an analogy that I used before, and that is in regards to what I do as a career. And that is, as a conductor, I can stand, wave my arms with my butt to the audience, but if I have nobody in front of me, ain't nobody listening to anything, right? I'm only as useful and functional as the very talented people in front of me, and that is all 123 plus of you guys, and of course, everybody else in VATUSA. So I encourage you to speak up, message me, message Meg, message any of us in a collaborative nature, in a constructive form. Let's get this going. Let's keep this train moving. We've done a lot in a year. Let's see if we can do even more in the next. And then real quick, I want to shout out two people. First, I want to shout out Blake. Blake has been tremendous behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, around the scenes. He's been working magic, trying to get Moodle to work with VATUSA website, and I truly appreciate everything he's done. Actually, I should have waited Blake because I didn't realize he was the next announcer. But I did want to hold off my last thing before I reintroduce Blake, and I just want to give a shout out to my coworker, not my subservient, my coworker, Miss Meg. Meg Brook was beyond influential when it came to her, and comes, actually present tense, comes to her work in the development of the Academy. And, you know, you may not by chance see her on Discord posting as much as me, but then again, I'm from New York, and clearly I've already had one too much cup of coffee, and you understand that I can pretty much speak a lot. But she's doing a whole heck of a lot, folks, and I just want you to be able to appreciate everything she's done. And I want to let you know that I really appreciate everything she's doing. So, Meg, thank you very much. Blake, thank you very much. And then lastly, as I usually do at concerts, I have to thank my administration, Manny and Wes, for giving us the latitude and longitude and whatever to be able to kind of run this ship in terms of training as we are. And lastly, and probably most importantly, I want to thank everybody here because literally without you, none of this really matters. So thank you to everybody. I'm going to turn the ship over here to Mr. Blake, who's going to discuss his role as Data Services Manager. Blake?
All right. Hi, thank you very much. So just a pretty quick presentation. So I'll just give a very brief professional development update. That comes from Braden Manzella. Then I'll give a data services update. So that comes from me and web team. And third, we'll do a marketing and communications update. So very first, so professional development, this comes from Braden. So these are just some of the projects that he's working on. So first, we're going to be doing an Atm and D810 Orientation course. They've already started testing on that, and it's been pretty well received. So that will be implemented sometime in the near future. Second, we are going to be at some point hiring for a pilot community manager at some point in the future. So that will help bridge the gap between the pilots and controllers, which is one of the many goals of the social media team. So that will definitely help them. And third, we're going to have a performance feedback program. So that'll just be a way for people or for controllers to submit feedback for staff members and give them some suggestions how they can improve and so on and so forth like that. So then we'll get into data services. So probably the biggest change that's happened in the last year is our server architecture that we have completely rewritten, completely changed. So we used to be in a micro instance-based server setup in AWS, and we are now in a dual server load balance setup in DigitalOcean. And that's thanks to Kubernetes. So for the end user, you know, this all may be just technical jargon. You may not notice the difference right away. You probably didn't even know anything changed. That's fine. The biggest takeaway from this is that we will have much better uptime and a little bit better speed with the VATUSA website in general. And that really only applies, you'll see it if you're making API requests, so that will apply to the staff members. But you know, in general, the staff members are the ones that use the VATUSA website, the main website, the most. So if we look at the uptime, so just in the last 24 hours, we're currently at 100% uptime. For last 7 days, we're currently at 99.96. And so in the last 30 days, 99.96. So that is a very high number. 100% obviously is the goal. That's kind of impossible to hit, but it's 100% is the goal. But just 99.6% uptime is a very good number. I guess on that slide, you can also see the last 90 days. 90 days are a little bit lower because that includes the server move, which was a little bit of a hiccup for a week. So that's kind of what brought that number down. But you know, last 7 days, last 30 days, it's quite high. So just some upcoming projects. You can see all the bugs we're working on and projects on the GitHub repositories. So those are in the issue section. You can see what we're working on, but just some highlights. So the Academy, so that's also been a huge project. That's very much so integrated with the VATUSA website database. So for that, that is an ongoing project to make sure that that works as it should. So that includes all the role synchronization, course enrollment, and the integration with the VATUSA membership database. So that all happens behind the scenes, and for that, we're just making sure that that is solid. And it's as of right now, it is pretty solid. Something we want to work on is the time between initial login to course enrollment, because that can take a little bit of time. That can take a few hours, up to 12 hours for that to completely go through. So that's something we'll be working on, is making that time a little bit less, a little bit quicker to get started. Second, so we have right now, the Discord is completely governed by the Discord bot, at least the roles are. So whenever you want to roll, you can either click the button on the VATUSA website, the give roles button, or you can do it, or you can do the command in the channel. Those all will update your nickname, synchronize your roles accordingly. Eventually, what we're working on is for that to be automated. So, within 5 to 10 minutes of you joining the server, you'll have your roles automatically, or whenever you get a promotion, to a different rating or a staff position, all of that will be automatically synchronized without any user input. So that'll be a future project. Another future project is the integration with the command center. So right now we have Tmu Notices, which were kind of a preview, I guess, of the command center before it was a thing. That was kind of our idea to plan, or our idea of beginning what the command center now does. So the Tmu notices are kind of obsolete as it stands right now. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be completely changing that into what the command center does. So, for example, the advisories, the NTML notices, all of those things will be integrated through the website. So who we designate access to, they'll be able to submit NTMLs, advisories. It'll give you the raw text, the decoded text. It'll push it out to the Discord and any other Discords. I'll probably open that up to other Discords that want that bot, but I may just leave it as the the subscribable announcement channels. We'll see how that works later. But just know that that will be a thing. Another feature, the new statistics center. So this only applies to staff members. Mainly applies to like our tech management staff. I suppose for training, that could also apply to instructors. So we're going to be creating a statistics center. And that's statistics. So you'll, it's all kinds of statistics. So, retention rates, all kinds of stuff. It'll be great. So that'll come later. And then eventually, we are going to be wanting to redesign the website and the API. So this is a long-term project. This won't be for a little bit, but as a long-term project, we will be rewriting the website. That'll be help of my web team. We will be rewriting the website and the API. As the website right now as it stands, it can use some work. It's pretty, but it's not the prettiest it could be. And it uses some outdated technology, because with technology, things change very rapidly. So we will be working on that in the long term. Two other features I'm going to add to this list. One is going to be a training status dashboard. So what this will do as a very high level summary is it's going to color code facilities based on their training backlog, which may guide new controllers in where they're going to go when they initially select their facility. So more details on that will come later. But just as a summary, we'll be able to present to new controllers in that color-coded fashion the training backlog in facilities. So again, how that's going to work and all that will come later. And then a second feature I like to add, A lot of the ATMs, DATMs already know this, but we are going to be removing the email forwarders in favor of Discord notifications. So all those transactional notifications, so those include, exam assignments, exam results, transfers, suspensions, transfer outs, transfer outs, all those notifications, you are going to be able to opt in to get those through Discord DM, through the VATUSA Discord bot. So you'll be able to either say, for all these different types of notifications, you'll be able to say either get it on Discord, email, none, or both. By default, it'll be email for all those. But then you can go in and change it to Discord or none or both, or however you like. And all the bugs that we're working on, those can all be seen on the GitHub repositories. And those are also public. So everything's open source. So anybody can go onto the GitHub repos, look at what we're working on. If you know what you're doing, then you can make pull requests, submit changes. That is all open to the public. It's open source. So that concludes data services update. So for now, the marketing communications update. Very first thing, we now have a social media team. So this was created earlier in the year, and they're managing our Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Twitch, and Discord. So currently there are 8 members of the social media team. Those are the ones excluding the VATUSA staff members. So just some of the work that they've been doing. Twitch channel. I'm sure a lot of you have already watched some of the stuff that we've put out, but that is there. I believe we can put a link to that somewhere, probably in social media channel. I'm sure somebody can go in there and put a link to it. But that's a thing. As far as VATUSA Facebook page, we'll see the growth here on the next slide. But our Facebook lead, okay, let me try to pronounce your last name, Mark Galbraith. I believe that's how you pronounce it. Sorry if that's wrong. He's done an amazing job on the Facebook page, and we've seen quite a large amount of growth on the Facebook page, which we'll see in the next slide. So we also have a YouTube channel. I'm sure most of you have seen the videos on the YouTube channel. So that happened earlier this year. So far, we've been releasing 7 videos every month, and that's going to continue to increase. And of course, we do have a new logo. Thank you, Bradley Fishman, for that. So that logo is now seen everywhere on the website, on these slides, on all of our policies it's going to be on. So great new logo. Thank you very much, Bradley, for that. And then Twitter page, it's been resurrected. It wasn't really used in the past, but it is now back alive. So our Twitch lead, Sport Thomas, along with our Twitch moderator, Simon Ramirez, they've done an excellent job reworking Twitter, making it back and alive again. Oh, as a correction, 7 videos so far, not per month. That's 7 videos total, not per month. Okay, so as far as growth goes, so Facebook has seen huge growth. So just post reach alone. So who has been able to see our posts? 950%. So it's been up almost 1,000%, which is great. And page views up 540%, and page likes up 39%. And then Twitter, so just some numbers. So currently I have 803 followers. Hopefully we can get to 1,000. I don't know, by the end of the year. That would be pretty cool. And just for numbers, we had 235 tweets, 33 retweets. As for YouTube, we currently have 7 videos and 196 subscribers. Next milestone there is going to be 500. Hopefully we can get that by the end of the month, or not end of the month, end of the year. Maybe by the end of the month. That would be cool in 10 days. And Twitch, live sessions, we've had 2 so far. And followers, we have 79 followers. So let's try to get that up to 100. That would be cool. So the biggest takeaway with this is that all of our platforms are experiencing growth, and especially the Facebook. Everything's growing. So thank you very much for everybody for going on to those platforms, looking at our posts, watching the videos. And if anybody has any ideas, we'll get into that later. But thank you very much for following our platforms. So for future projects within the marketing communication department, so some to-do items, we're going to be working on some communication and posting cadences. We're going to be reworking how we moderate the Discord server and a terms of service rewrite. So that will come later. A VATUSA Tmu live feed. I believe that's going to be on all the platforms, so YouTube Live, Twitch, especially during events, so people can go on there and they can see what the command center with the TMU, what is happening with all those people. So that'll be pretty cool. That'll be a live feed. And we'll be working on a streamer and virtual airline contact center. So again, bridging the gap between controllers and pilots, a big goal of the social media team in general, and that will also help with that. Yeah, so there's some things around here. So let's see. As far as Twitch goes, we're going to be rolling out the VATUSA Streamer Partnership Program, where we have streamers, they partner with us, again, bridging the gap between pilots and controllers. So also on the YouTube, we'll be releasing a few more videos in the next 30 days. And we have an interesting cinematic project that we're also working on with that. So, okay. So that concludes all of my updates. And I'll go ahead and give it back to Nick.
And we're now into the question and answer period. So we opened up a pigeonhole, and we've got a live one going right now. I'll give you that address here in just a moment. But we opened one up prior to this town hall tonight, this whole past week, and took in questions. We got 11 really good questions, and we're going to go ahead and answer all of those. And then we've got 4 so far, it looks like, in the pigeonhole that's live. And so we'll give you that address here in just a moment. I'll go through the additional speakers that we've got in the house tonight, so to speak. Let's get into that. We've got Ryan Perry, VAT USA 4. He's the Western Region Manager. We've got Paul Simran, VAT USA 5. He's the South Central Region Manager. Rick Rump, VAT USA 6, the Midwestern Region Manager. Brandon Barrett, VAT USA 7, the Northeastern Region Manager. Also here tonight is Cody Cochran, VAT USA 8, Southeastern Region Manager. VAT USA 9, Jeremy Peterson, National Operations Manager. Meg Bruck, VAT USA 13, the Deputy Training Manager. And last but not least, Brandon Winning, VAT USA 15, our new Events Manager. Okay, on to the first question. What is VAT USA Division Staff's take on the JFK F&O from September 10th with respect to the updated guidelines for F&O events, which became effective this past spring? Robert Sherman, some of you know him as Slant Alpha, submitted that. And Mr. Brandon Winning, VAT USA 15, has decided to take on that question. So, Brandon, I'll pass it off to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So the in regards to the JFK F&O and how it relates to those guidelines, the JFK F&O actually followed all the guidelines set forth by our policy. It was a new style of event that ZNY was wanting to try out. Obviously, things did not go as planned, and we have already had conversations with all parties involved discussing what we want to do going forward from there. There's already a clause in our policy that says that the VAT USA and the events manager, like myself, can deem airports unworthy or events unworthy and ask for modifications. We originally did not want to use that section of the policy because I very much value Arctic's freedom for their events and their creative ideas. I really didn't want to step in and say, hey, you can't be creative with your own events. You've got to follow what I say. But I think we're going to use that rule in a more productive manner, where we are able to correct some ideas that we think won't be as successful in conjunction with Jeremy and the TMU team as well. So I think we will be able to easily just use the policy that we have currently and better tailor it for some more impressive events in the future. Hopefully that answers your question, Rob. Thank you so much for replying.
Thanks, Brandon. So we'll move on to the next question. And I'm probably going to mispronounce your name, Ryan. I'm sorry, but Ryan Holhauser? Holzhauer? Apologies. I'm sure I butchered that. What is VATUSA doing to combat the problem of C1, C3 retention? And our division director decided to take that one. Manny?
Thank you, Nick, and thank you, Ryan, for your question. We're doing several things to combat the problem of C1, C3 retention. The training academy will hopefully increase speed to competency through the S1, S2, S3 level up to the C1 level. I feel that right now it's taking a long time for observers to reach the C1 level. And a lot of C1s, by the time they finally reach that level, they may be exhausted, they may be burnt out, they may not want to go into a staff position. And before recently, there were very limited avenues outside of being a staff person to do something a little different in your virtual career. Hopefully, with the speed of competency, our C1s will still be fresh and excited and be willing to look at some of the other avenues, such as the command center. Jeremy is starting to develop his command center training material, and that's a perfect way for a C1 to get out of their RTAC silo and start looking at traffic from a tier one, tier two perspective. Another thing we're looking at is the social media team, for example. That's another avenue. The web services team, that's another avenue for C1s to move into. And of course, we have our traditional stepping stones, such as becoming an instructor, a training administrator, perhaps a supervisor, or who knows, you may become an administrator and move your way up to the Board of Governors. So hopefully, the introduction of all these different avenues will increase the C1 retention. Um, we did, and I can't remember the number now, but we did start our C3 program up again, and we um, did promote several C1s into the C3 ranking.
Thanks, Manny. We will go on to the next question now. I see we've got several questions coming in on the pigeonhole. Thank you so much for all those submissions. We're checking on those. We'll be getting to the open floor section or session of the town hall here in just a few moments.
Nick, my apologies.
Yes, go ahead, Manny. No, that's okay.
I almost forgot a very big thing that we're planning to do for C1 retention. It just popped in my mind. The outreach to the pilot community. I feel in addition to the burnout, there's also the wave of new pilots coming on board. They're very new, very fresh. They're creating a lot of situations because they're not used to being online. And hopefully, when we get our pilot community manager on board and our outreach to see, what the pilot community needs, hopefully that will also stem C1 attrition.
All right, so we'll go on into the next question here, which is from, and again, I'm probably going to butcher the name. My apologies. Daniel Cormandy says, "Hi, are you guys planning a potential landline system for VATSIM?" And Daniel, thank you so much for the question. I'll actually take that one. So that one is actually more of a network question. So something for one of the developers or Matt perhaps at VATGov. I know the ATM from Albuquerque is here. Alexandra Ali, she's here tonight, so she may be able to speak a little bit to that, but I won't hold her to it. But I just would refer you back to VATSIM to potentially answer that question and maybe even a developer of the controller client itself, like Ross or somebody like that might be the better person for that. Sorry, I couldn't answer that question for you. We'll move on into the next question. Got a couple more left before we get into the open floor. The next one Anthony's going to take, and that is submitted by GR, and it says, how is VATUSA, more yet VATSIM, dealing with the network prioritizing, I can't talk tonight, pilots over controller retention? Why is it so important to have connection numbers rather than controller quality? Anthony?
So I have never been of the, and actually, GR, hey man, I just responded to you again. I've never been of the mindset where numbers are over quality. And I've had actually many meaningful and good conversations with Matt from VATGov, where I did push back a little bit in conversation insofar as where I believe the network was driving, where as opposed to where I believe it was in the best interest of my teachers and the people with whom I am in charge. And so I've always been more about quality than numbers. So that philosophy rings true with every decision we make. And as far as quality, we've already made one enormous step forward with that. Not only in general with the academy, but we institute every OBS now has to do, specific to the onboarding, they have to undergo what's called trainee orientation course. And that training orientation course, or trainee, orientation course, is actually open to everybody, regardless of your level. I would advise, even if you're a seasoned veteran, to just take a peek at it. It's not for any other reason except to provide your own opinion of it. But for some, it could just be to realign and reestablish your outlook of what you're to expect here. And prior to really having that, I think when I surveyed the instructional team and across VATUSA, one of the things that they believed was very, very much lacking was this expectation. When students join, what are they expecting? Are they expecting to just literally fly through? As GR said in one of the conversations, as almost like a rating factory, just get through, get your rating, go on, and just just be another number available for a pilot to be able to call, regardless of the quality. And fair enough to that point, there was never really a sit down and an explanation or an avenue other than for an individual teacher to spend the time to explain that to each individual student. The division, in my opinion, and again, I'm going to speak in terms of what I believe was something that the division needed to do better on, but this has nothing to do with anybody or to a fault of anyone. But I do believe that the division was poorly equipped with really establishing that expectation for new students. Students would join, they really wouldn't have that notion. They would just kind of go to a place where perhaps they would be able to accelerate through and just kind of get their thing, but not have a true appreciation for the study, the amount of effort. This is a hobby, and this is obviously something that is open to everybody. But as I have said in discussion with Matt, private and in public, this hobby is not for everyone. It is open to everyone, but you have to be able and willing to do some of that self-work, to really be able to learn on your own as much as it is to learn from a mentor, to be able to go the extra distance and study, because we're talking about a skill set that is not as easy as learning Snake or as easy as learning Sudoku. This is a challenge. And to meet that challenge, I believe, especially when it comes to the beginning of a school year, I always set the expectations for that school year up with my students. They know exactly what they're getting into each year when they get into my class. There's no difference. There should be no difference with what we establish here in this hobby. We need to be able to facilitate. We need to create many avenues for students to learn. Not everybody's going to get from point A to Z in a straight line. And that's on our job. And that's completely cool. And that's the way learning works. But ultimately, that expectation needs to be there so that they understand what they're getting into. And I do believe that aligned with what we're doing with the academy is moving in a direction where, and again, time will tell, but moving in a direction where we can start to focus on the quality factor while perhaps even getting people to get to a point where they're able to give back to the community with higher ratings, with other things, but doing so in a way that does not sacrifice the quality. So we're working on it, and just understand that as far as we are concerned, we're always keeping that in check and that mindset. We have, and our bosses, they have their, I don't want to say agenda, but they definitely have their vantage point. But then we have ours, and it's through collaborative discussion and constant communication and feedback and qualitative research that we're going to figure out a way to move forward in the best interest of everybody in the sandbox.
Okay, thanks, Anthony. And some coffee now, so wait. Okay, the next question, Blake, about USA. Well, our data services manager has decided to take, and it is: with the command center growing, does VATUSA have any plans to expand or redesign the website and TOS system to help support TMU efforts? So this was actually submitted by Raj, and I want to give Raj a quick shout out because he's the one that's actually enabled us to do this stream like we've done for the presentation tonight, which gives us, really smooth, nice video. So special thanks to Raj for doing that for us tonight. Blake, you want to take the question?
Yeah. So the answer to this is yes. That was one of the parts of my upcoming projects portion of my presentation, but I'll just say it again real quick. So yes, we are going to be replacing the Tmu notices, which is also what we called NTOS. That's going to be replaced in favor of the command center advisories and NTMLs. So you'll be able to go onto the website, whoever we allocate or designate to be able to during a specific event, you'll be able to submit your advisories. It'll be presented in decoded text, raw text. Also we'll be able to, I guess I already said that, delegate people to do it, whereas with the current TMU notices, you can't. And that will be, all those advisories, they'll be on the website somewhere, and they will be pushed out to the Discord. So everything will be able to be added in one place. So you would only need to go to the VATUSA website, add those advisories and the NTMLs or whatever you want to add, and then hit the submit button, and then it will be pushed everywhere it needs to go. So it'll all be in one spot that you'll be able to submit them on.
Thanks, Blake. Appreciate it. Go on to the next question, which is from Grant Williams, and it's: how do you plan on prioritizing, I think I got it right, the need for fun and the need for realism so as to not alienate or turn off people to the new hobby? Great question, Grant. Thank you. And it looks like Anthony is going to take this one, followed by Brandon.
Sure. So I'm going to bring this into my real world profession. So, and then you have to understand that this is almost the same as the amount of years I've been on VATSIM. So we're pushing 20 in both. I have, and I was actually just about to, Shane, you still here? I'm responding to, you had said to clarify about the position of OBS to C1. It kind of, what I'm going to explain here is kind of in line with what I'm going to say in order to address this question. So I'm going to probably stop typing now and talk this. I have seniors. By the time they're a senior, they're borderline interested in music. But they're still there for the entire year. And there's two reasons why they're there. They're there because they want to finish out that sequence. They want to be able to graduate. They want to be able to say that they've done a performing music ensemble since fourth grade all the way through the senior year. But then they're also there because of the environment. I do not expect anybody to leave my band becoming the first chair or second chair or even last chair of any major band, orchestra, or chorus. And quite frankly, from the kids that I have spoken to who have graduated now about 15 years ago, I speak to them and they don't really ever pick up an instrument. Sad, but they don't pick up an instrument. But they remember specific things about what went on in class. The job of a teacher is to make the time meaningful no matter the content. The content drives the curriculum. The curriculum drives interest, of course, 100%. But it's the community that you build that will ultimately create longevity. That C1 will be invested to stick around, as well the person who has all the knowledge in the world, as well as the person who has no knowledge in the world. they'll be willing to stick around if the community is apt for them to still be there. And we have tried very, very hard to, with how often we're on Discord, how often we're engaging in conversations and throwing out things there and creating opportunities for, I'll say, my upperclassmen, if you will, my S3s and C1s, to be able to engage in creating content for the academy, to be able to teach at some of these group training sessions, to give back, but in a way that helps to foster why they're here and keep them here because they're really interested in the community. As far as the prioritizing for need for fun and realism, this has been something that has been a conversation for me for nearly the 20 years that I've been a part of VATSIM. And I have real world training in both ATC. I got real world training in a lot more, of course, in pilot. And I'm an active pilot in my area. And, whenever I go on to VATSIM, there are things that deviate. And I have great discussions with a lot of friends of mine who are professional pilots and real world controllers. And it's always been a very hard line to be able to kind of dance around. Problem is, and at least this is the way I look at it, VATSIM to me has always been similar to X-plane scenery. It's not a parallel to reality, but is a plausible reality because of, well, you all know the term VATSIMisms. There are plenty of them. And of course, you guys have to remember that this particular sandbox, first of all, when you become a controller, let's say a controller, we're talking specifically that, you go through a whole lot of training and you will go through a lot of aptitude tests, and not everybody's cut out to do it cognitively. Yet here we are, and no offense to a 13-year-old that might fit this description, but here we are in a community where you have a 13-year-old who still picks their boogers with a 70-year-old seasoned veteran with a 50-year-old person who's literally been working traffic for the last 20-something years, and a pilot who's, a captain with a major airline. It's a very, very unique community of people that we are like a hodgepodge trying to get together and have everybody all play nicely together. And the hard thing is this very question is to find a way to find that happy medium. We have our rules. Our rules are set by VATSIM in terms of curricula, right? We have a baseline standard that we have to achieve. Going back to GR's concerns about the rating factory, we would try very hard through communication with all the subdivisions to make sure that all of those baseline standards are being met. Those baseline standards are to an extent out of our control because they are aligned with what VATSIM, which is our bosses, determined to be the philosophy of the network. We have our leeway to be able to augment that with FAA, VATUSA specific curricula items, and we do. And that is where our goal lies. As far as going beyond that realism, I look at it, and I'll give you one more example, and then I'll be quiet and move on. I look at it how I program music for my ensemble. And I'm making this a lot about music, but you got to understand, I'm making analogies that are literally my everyday life. When I have a group of people in my concert band that are capable of, let's say, a level 6 NISMA, right? For us, New York State Music School Association has 6 degrees of complexity in terms of the music. For that sequence, I'm able to push the group. I'm able to move a little bit faster. But there are going to be years, especially after a 4-year sequence, when I have a bunch of freshmen come in and they're inexperienced, and now I have a little bit lopsided. I gotta amend the content of my curriculum. So maybe I'll do a level 5. I change it based on the needs of the student. But the one constant, and this is where I come full circle, the one constant that is always true, regardless of level 3, level 4, level 5, level 6, is the community that I'm creating, the atmosphere I'm creating, the idea that I'm going to push the students from wherever they are now so that tomorrow they can look back and say, I am better and I am moving forward. And as long as we never remain sedentary, and we always push, and we always say, you know what, let's see if we can push. And if we push too far, that's all right. We're going to come back. As long as we have our baseline, that's what we need. But we need to keep this type of atmosphere, and you all need to keep this type of atmosphere, because listen, you all are going to outlast me as USA 3. That's for sure. It is your job, your task, to keep this moving forward so that, and please don't forget, the 13-year-old and the 40-year-old and the 50-year-old and the 20-year-old all need to find a way to work together. And that is the obligation. That is the task. That is what is so monumentally difficult about, a position like mine. a position like Meg's, any one of us, anybody who's on the instructional team. But it's that community that we create that will help drive us forward and determine the path we take. So roundabout answer, that's about basically what I got. I apologize for all the music references. I'm looking at the chat go absolutely nuts with Tyler saying I'm like the only one that knows. But listen, I hope that made sense. I hope everybody understands what the heck I'm talking about. At least appreciate it and move on. I'm going to drink another cup of coffee. Nick, yours.
Thank you very much, Anthony. All right, so we'll get on into the next question here, and this is one to Mr. Manny, and it is from Kim. And Kim asks, how does VATUSA plan to deal with the Gcap and network changes? Manny?
Once Gcap is passed, and thanks for your question, Cam. Once it's passed, I anticipate that the network will give us a period of time to execute the policy. I don't anticipate it will go into effect on day one. And there's a lot of work we're going to have to do as a division staff. I anticipate it's going to take us 3 to 6 months to think about how we're going to execute the policy deliberately and correctly. And of course, we'll be partnering with all of the RTEC staffs. We'll need to do a designated airspace review. We'll need to figure out which airports are going to get the restricted airspace designation. We're going to have to review and modify all of our policies surrounding currency, events, training. So a lot of work to be done.
Thank you, Manny. On into the next question here with probably my favorite screenshot of the night. Submitted by J.A. It is a great question. Thank you for your question. It's how is VATUSA planning to deal with increased VFR traffic and helicopter traffic with Microsoft Flight Simulator? I've noticed a lack of controllers knowing how to handle this type of traffic and willingness to work with them. And I believe Mr. Anthony is going to take that question. Anthony?
Oh, this is quick and easy. We've already started to do this. Last week I held a training session on VFR traffic. Actually, there's a folder that was shared in the Discord, accessible to everybody. Public, has all the training materials there, and we're doing this stuff on a regular basis. And here's my pitch: in about 45 minutes, stick around. We'll do another group training session. So we're doing it. It's been done. It's going to happen again. We are focusing on it. I know individual facilities have started to uptick that as soon as Microsoft Flight Sim came to fruition. So it is on the radar and very much in sight. So I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you very much, Anthony. And we'll get on into our last pre-submitted question before we get to we've got 11 questions now on the board for the open floor. So let's get into this one. Another one from Cam. Thank you for the question, Cam. What policy is physically stopping an RTEC from quote unquote staffing up on an FNO night that is across the country while getting more traffic than an FNO, say through streamers and VA group flights, things like that? And our events manager, Brandon, has decided to take that one. Brandon?
Yeah, thank you. So there is no policy stopping anybody from staffing up on an FNO night. There is a policy that prohibits you from hosting an event in conjunction with an FNO on that evening. So if you're wanting to get the guys together and staff up New York for a Houston FNO, more than happy to do so. We love seeing you guys online and participating and being active in the community. You just can't have a New York event at the same time as a Houston FNO. I hope that answers the question. If there's anything else, Cam, you feel free to reach out to me. Happy to elaborate further.
Thanks so much, Brandon. And so without further ado, that takes us into the open floor portion of the town hall. But we've got 11 questions here now in just under 45 minutes to wrap these up. So first question from Shane Friedman. Thanks, Shane, for the question. To clarify, VATUSA's position is that the faster an observer gets to see one, the longer we retain them. that doesn't feel like retention. It feels like we are reallocating the burnout time. And looks like Manny has his hand up to do that one. So, Mr. Manny?
Yes, it's not that UA's position. It's my personal position. I'm a trainer in the real world as well. And I do feel that the best time I do feel that if we can get students up to the S3 level, it will increase the chances of retaining them because the S3 level and then subsequently the C1 level, that's where a lot of the fun happens for a lot of people because they're now um, working with airplanes in 3 dimensions. And for a lot of people, the material is more interesting.
So I understand that perspective, but you're not from what I'm looking at here, from the way that my brain processes this, we're not retaining them for longer after their certification. They're just being certified for longer, which is a positive, but there's no retention. I mean, we're talking about C1 retention, and the points that you brought up were the command center. I don't know if you brought it up, but ACE team is one of them, training, all that stuff, and that's awesome. But the reality is, if an OBS goes to C1 in 8 months, he's just going to get bored of his C1 in the same amount of time that somebody who took 2 years to get to C1. So if the perspective is we want to get them through training faster so they can get through training faster, that's fine. But I just can't see how that helps with retention. And this is looping back to the academy. I don't understand how the academy is helping with C1 retention. That doesn't seem at all logical to me. And Anthony, I understand your point about your seniors sticking around, but this isn't school. This isn't high school we're talking about. This is a hobby where people come in and out very, very frequently. And if someone gets their C1 and decides they're bored with it in 2 days, or they're fed up with the traffic because the amount of C1s I have coming to me in S3s saying that they can't handle dealing with the planes stepping on each other every 5 seconds on frequency and they can't squeeze a word in. I just ran an event tonight, and my center controller, who would have been fine on a normal day, couldn't handle it because every time he pushed his button, somebody else had stepped on him, and every time somebody else pushed their button, somebody stepped on them. It's not about training. It's not about what they can do. It's about making the network better. And for me, the only plan to improve C1 retention has only everything to do with pilot training. Pilots need to improve in quality if we want any hope of keeping people on this network for longer than 2 months after they earn their C1.
Yes, I definitely agree that we need to work on pilot quality. One thing to keep in mind, Shane, is in a network that is a top-down network, we definitely need to increase the speed to competency to have controllers at a ranking where they can perform all of the functions on the network as a controller. And we should definitely be more top-heavy with C1s versus bottom-heavy with observers and S1s who can contribute little to the network on the live network as a controller.
I agree with that, but it's still the training aspect. A controller being promoted from S1 to major tower should take a fraction of the time from a major tower controller going to minor approach, because there is a huge change in topic. It's kind of unreasonable to think that we can get people to S3 any quicker without buffing up training by a massive amount, finding tens of maybe even 50 trainers that exist in VATUSA that we're not using because for this reason or that reason. Like I cannot comprehend how we're going to make it faster to get to S3 because the radar is still complicated, and people have a hard time with 3D space. And I agree with you, radar is more fun. I much prefer radar, but just saying getting to S3 needs to happen quicker, it doesn't fix the problem of radar still really difficult for a lot of people to understand. And the reason we have a lot of career S2s and S1s is because they can't deal with airplanes in the air. It's hard for their brain to process, and it's not because they don't want to move forward. It's because they can't. They haven't been able to understand the concept, and some don't want to move forward. I don't understand how training.
So, Shane, just to elaborate on what I was talking about, because I do believe there is a correlation, but here's my vantage point, Shane, and I guess maybe you'll see this as Manny. Maybe this is a little bit different from your point. Is I don't view the end. I don't view ever the end game. I view the journey. And what I was suggesting is that if the journey is made more palatable in every way that we possibly can do, and to go back on another question about, we always say, well, it's out of our hands. No, there is communication, and there is an avenue of communication as far as what is being done with VACGov as far as what they're going to do for pilot uh, quality. But as far as say what I can do physically, and I think the direct correlation of what the academy can do for retention is not a straight path. I think it's what comes from the peripheral and what manifested from simply what we were doing with the academy. And that goes to the community and the atmosphere I was talking about. Enriching the journey to make that more palatable is, to me, the approach that we would take in order to retain, because I can only go based on my own personal experience, having gone. I was on I-13 or whatever the heck, I-3, VATUSA 12, I think it was at the time, back in 2006. I've done division stuff. I've done the local training stuff. I've been the I-1. I've been the TA. I've been the C1, C3. I've done all of that. And the only reason why I stay around, as much as I hate the stepping on, as much as I hate the pilots, which have gone ever since Emma's, remember Emma's gaming zone going down, and then all of a sudden we got the flood of people coming here joyriding on this network. The only thing that kept me around was the friends I made at ZNY, the community that I had there, and you guys, literally you guys. Fast forwarding, you are the reason why I'm not leaving the USA 3 position, which is incredibly trying. So for me, and I know this is a very abstract answer because I can't articulate anything more concrete, I think. For me personally, refining that journey, making it more palatable, and really trying to find out what we can do to make these, as you said, volunteer people who are just here for a hobby enjoy their time being here, is what potentially can help with retention later. It's what'll keep them saying, you know what, there will be a better tomorrow. There are communication, stuff that's on the horizon, constantly communicating that stuff is on the horizon. I think that's what also would help retain this idea that there will be something new. There will be something happening. We all know that the voice quality was stinky for a while, and all of a sudden, oh, there's a new voice. Well, there's a reason for that, but still, these things that are happening on the precipice, right on the horizon, sometimes just that level of transparency can help you stick around for that extra minute. And I honestly believe that it all comes from that. I mean, I'm that warm, fuzzy, gooey, cushy person. Manny is the mindset of numbers and with a plan that is more concrete. And I think if we can find something in the middle and constantly keep that open lane of communication, that there will be something to come for and this is what I had said is going to be my mission for this year, my personal mission along with Meg, and I believe the division will back us with this, is that we will try and address this within this next year. We were focused so much on the OBS on S1 onboarding. I think it's fair to say that we really owe it to our, hate to say it again, with the upperclassmen, you know what I mean, the S3s, the C1s, we really owe it to them to invest time into them this next year. And that'll be my mission. And hopefully a year from now, I can give you a better, a better answer, Shane. Nick, go.
Just sorry, Nick. Nick, if you don't mind, I want to step off the floor real quick. But I want to give one last thing. Manny and Anthony, I appreciate both of you guys' perspectives and I appreciate both of your opinions. But the thing that stuck out to me about what both of you said is you both just have opinions here and there's nothing concrete. I think the division needs to take a stance on how we're going to retain a C1, and I think it needs to happen now because I don't have any good ideas, and it doesn't seem like the division really has a concrete vision of what's going to happen with that either. That's all I got.
Well, yeah, you can't control whether someone chooses to stay or not. I mean, that's a personal decision. But when I'm talking about speed to competency and speed to C1, one of the things I found out in the Gcap committee, I was getting heartburn. I was getting heartburn over it taking 90 days for someone to get to an S1. And I found out on that committee, there are some divisions, it takes 9 months, a year plus. And I don't know about you all, but I don't join a hobby and be so excited to sit on the sidelines for a year. I don't know how anyone can do that. And if you remember that slide that I showed at the beginning of the town hall with the rankings, and you saw how sharply that observer line was going, and then you see the S1, we doubled our observers. The growth rate in S1 has only been 36%. So we're losing a large chunk of our observers because we can't move them. And so hopefully, I mean, there's 4 different ways to learn as a learner. And we lean very heavily on instructor-led training, which is the least efficient way to train. But of course, because of the complexity of our material, we have to do that. But hopefully the Academy will open up some of that training bandwidth, keep people engaged. And if you increase engagement, which is the journey, you keep them engaged, you're going to probably retain them. Let's move on to Bobby's question.
Okay, thanks, Manny. So Bobby's question is, I know VATUSA has no control over pilot quality. Is VATUSA working with anyone from VATGov on this issue and voicing our concerns to the Gov rather than just saying nothing can be done? And thanks, Bobby, for the question. Manny?
I was on a committee that Ethan Hawes was leading. It was a pilot. It was called the Pilot Accountability Committee. So I know that VATGov is concerned about pilot quality. They rolled out that P0 rating back in October of 2020, and they introduced those other pilot ratings. We are in communication with VATGov about our concerns about pilot quality, but haven't heard what additional items or projects are in the pipeline on a VATGov level surrounding it.
And I can add to that there that on the Pigeonhole there is a comment. Thank you, Kyle Sanders, who posted the reply from the new VATSIM pilot manager there that they actively know of the problem and are working on a solution up there. So just to add on to Manny there, hopefully that answers the question. Thank you.
Thanks again for the question, Bobby. And on to the next question here. And it's actually another question from Bobby. Thanks again for the question. So it says, what is VATUSA doing to get the RMs more involved with the RTECs, both with controlling and interacting with the controllers in the RTECs they are managing? So who would like to take this one?
All right, guys. Hearing nobody step up on this one, I think I'm going to try to, let me make sure I'm going out here. Yes, I am. Okay, great. What is VATUSA doing to get the RMs more involved with the RTECs, both with controlling and interacting with the controllers in the RTECs that they are managing? So part of the job that we laid out for the RMs, and it's pretty much laid out in our policy, is that they need to be active. They need to be involved with each RTEC. They need to be talking, holding meetings, present on the Discord, getting controlling hours. And what we're seeing is, I think at first we had some growing pains because there was a lot of feeling that, well, why are you butting in on my stuff? You know, this is my facility, and you guys all of a sudden VATUSA is now trying to push their nose into things. That's not really what it's about. It's about getting people more comfortable with your region manager, more comfortable with their presence, feeling like you can talk to them and having that relationship. So to answer the question, what is VATUSA doing to get them more involved? In my opinion, at least everything that I'm seeing as far as feedback coming back from the RTECs, we are at that level. Our region managers are that involved. If they're not, I haven't seen any feedback to indicate that. I know we had a couple issues a few months ago, and I think we've resolved them. If not, I haven't heard anything. So if that's the case, certainly I would ask that you go out to your region manager first and kind of explain your opinion and what you're looking for. What do you want out of that relationship with your region manager? Feel free to have that discussion with them. We've given them the guidance that, you know, they're there to listen to that kind of stuff. They need to figure out what this relationship is going to look like between them and the ATMs.
And John just replied to that, asking where they would be able to send feedback.
I did reply to John. The respective region managers, their names and their emails can be found on the VATUSA website if you do wish to discuss with them. And as Wes said, they should be in your Discord, so you can obviously shoot them a DM if they're not in like a voice channel or anything like that.
Yeah. And worst case scenario, if you feel like your region manager is just unapproachable or you're having that big of an issue, just let me know. Reach out to me. I'll be glad to sit down and we could try to work out a relationship that works, because that's our goal. With controlling and interacting with the controllers and the art techs, I know we have a time constraint on these, so I'm going to try to go quick here. That's still something we're working out. And again, that goes back to what the region manager wants, what the ATMs want. Obviously, our goal would be to have everybody controlling in each single RTEC. But I mean, when you look at it from a feasibility perspective, these are all volunteers as well. So is it really feasible to get them in each RTEC controlling hours each month on top of any supervisor duties they may have? I don't know. But again, that's a discussion that needs to be had between the RM and the facility management.
Hey, thanks, Wes, for answering that for us. And thanks, Bobby and John, for those questions. I know those kind of two questions there tied into each other. And unfortunately, we're running up against time here a little bit, but we will be getting on to the next question here.
Sorry, okay? Just call me out. Call me out. It's all my fault. I apologize.
And we will have to put a time limit on the questions coming forward. So we'd like to do 2 minutes on the answer to the question and potentially 2 minutes on any subsequent response. So let's go ahead now and get into the next question here. And no, Anthony, it's not your fault at all. But this question comes from Drew. Thanks, Drew, for the question. And it's the Observer S1 stats don't look good. As Manny said, I'd love to see more detailed stats about why said observers aren't sticking around. I don't think they're all being, quote unquote, failed by the system personally. So, Manny, would you like to take this question?
So, yes, I agree with you, Drew. I don't think they're all being failed by the system. When I was the Northeast ATD, I created an exit interview survey to try to get to some of the root causes of why observers were trading. The response rate was not very good, but the biggest reason was controlling wasn't what I thought it was going to be. That could mean 1,000 different things. But as Anthony has said before, this hobby isn't for everyone. I think some people are excited about becoming an air traffic controller on the network, and then they quickly discover it's going to take studying, it's going to take a lot of time. It's not going to be as quick as they want, and some people step out. That being said, I think Gcap is also trying to address this problem with the various different airspaces, because we have to recognize that not everyone that wants to be an air traffic controller on the network want to put in that time investment. And that's what the minor airspace is for. Perhaps they want a little taste and just get onto some remote type of an airspace where they can have a little bit of human interaction and casually control and not be to the level of some controllers that have graduated to real world FAA jobs like you did.
Thanks, Manny. Appreciate it. So let's go ahead and move on to the next question here. And the next question comes from Brett Jones. And Brett asks, thanks, Brett, for the question. With the continued push by VATUSA to rank facilities by hours controlled, a small facility like Kansas City will have less hours than Atlanta. What is VATUSA doing to help smaller facilities get more controller? And Brett, I'd just add that I don't think necessarily that we're focusing more on hours controlled, because as you've seen in a slide earlier from Manny, we're also focusing on year-over-year growth. And I think year-over-year growth is important. Personally, I think it's more important than hours controlled. But I'll leave this one to Manny to answer.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing. I'm always have that on my mind, Brett, because I'm looking for metrics to award not just raw controlling numbers, because of course they're going to be your larger facilities, but also to recognize the smaller facilities. We're attempting to start a VATUSA, for lack of a better word, a VATUSA Iron Mike. I'm still waiting to look at the minutes from the last Board of Governors meeting that was held in July. They were addressing the future of the VATSIM Iron Mike. And based on whatever decision they come up with, would determine if our project is going to move forward. We were creating 3 different leagues, like a heavyweight league, a middleweight league, a lighter weight league, to try to take into account the various sizes of the RTECs. And Salt Lake, a very small RTEC, they have the highest growth rate. So when you look at it from year-over-year growth, VLC was in #1 place. And then looking at Memphis, they were in 4th place. And Indianapolis, I didn't go all the way through the rankings, but Indianapolis was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're in 7th place. And Kansas City is in 9th place, by the way.
With regards to events and getting those types of interactions with the smaller Arctics, with the new VA pilot program that I'm developing right now, my actual hope is to, I came up with that phrase, bridging the gap between controllers and pilots, and that's really one of my big goals as the events manager position, is to give each of their Arctics their own big events. So, like you said, the smaller events, a bigger event looks different than some of the bigger Arctics. So we're trying to tailor that um, to each Arctic size, making sure that you're actually having fun, being involved with the community, and creating those valuable pilot partnerships with VAs, pilot groups, flying communities, et cetera, et cetera. So that's something that I actually have on my deck to finish by the end of the year. It's in Q4 scheduled for me. So you will actually all the ECs will be looking forward to an email from me regarding some of the pilot initiatives I'd like to get started here.
All right, Nick, I think we moved on to this question here. What does VATUSA see as the right level of involvement in internal RTEC affairs? When should VATUSA staff be involved or not involved? The right level of involvement, I mean, obviously, we're trying to open up that line of communication to the maximum extent possible between the region manager and the RTEC, the ATM, the D810, because where'd the question go? What's happening in that RTEC is also something that's happening in the region, which the region manager has oversight for. So when I'm meeting with the RMs, when we're having ATS meetings, I'm asking them, what do you got going on? What are some problems you're encountering? What do you need? What are some suggestions? Are you fielding any suggestions or concerns from your staff? So in order to get that information, there needs to be an open line of communication. So something as what might seem trivial to you or to the RTEC as a conduct issue, the region manager needs to be aware of that, because that's something that he should be tracking. He or she should be tracking as a stat, essentially, and keeping track of where do we need to improve upon. And at any given time, they should have a pretty clear snapshot of their region. The only way to do that is with communication. So when should VATUSA staff be involved? There's really, and this kind of leads back to what I was saying before when I first gave the ATS update, which is we want to solidify that in an actual policy. We had these professionalism and expectations briefings that everybody, at the time, we had 100% contact on. I know we've had newer staff since then, so I'm not sure if they were in on it. But in those briefings, we kind of laid out some guidelines of where we want to start when it comes to VATUSA involvement. We're going to emphasize, or we're going to expand on that, and we're going to put it in actual policy. That's one of our 2022 goals, to kind of make your job, the RTEC's job, our job a little bit easier, make it more clearly defined in these processes. So that's going to be coming down the pipe.
Yeah, sure. John, I just wanted to give you from an RM's perspective as to what we're kind of involved with. Myself, I'm a big proponent of handling things at the lowest level. So if you have an issue, say with training, I want you to first go to your instructors or TA first, and then if they can't answer, the TA hopefully elevate it to their DATM, ATM. Then if that can't be solved at that point, then they bring it up to me and etc. So trying to get things handled before it gets to my desk or Manny's or Wes's desk. Uh, but like Wes mentioned, any disciplinary issues, it's just a nice CC in an email or anything like that, or just a notification to your PM. Say, hey, listen, we're having this problem. Um, you know, just letting you know, and we're going to try and handle it on our level, and I'll just kind of have it noted. Okay, this is going on in X RTech, and now I'm aware of it. Cool. And then if it does reach the point of where it comes to me, I actually have a list of okay, the ATM tried to reach out to them, try to mitigate the solution that it didn't work, and here's what we're going to do going forward. In one of the professionalism slides, it does mention something regarding crisis level. Basically, the RMs don't want to see an issue get to our desk, or Manny or Wes don't want to see an issue get to their desk when it reaches a crisis level. We want it to reach, hopefully, a point where it gets at least semi-resolved at the RTech level, and then we can just kind of finish it off at the hopefully the RM level and nothing above. There is certain things such as like sexual harassment, sexual assault that doesn't even go to us. That goes basically to Manny and then above. But that's really kind of only things that overstep us per se.
Okay, so you're basically just looking for to be kept up to date with what's going on, and then that way, you're not shocked by anything if it does come to you. All right.
Correct. Yep.
All right. I actually have a comment. I don't know if you want to let me make it or not on the question like 4 questions ago, the very first one. I think one of the biggest struggles that a lot of people have is in regards to kind of speeding up the training. It's trying to remove those roadblocks that might slow training down unnecessarily. That would prevent a controller that might have all the knowledge but might not have ticked quite 100% of every box on our normal curriculum, kind of inhibiting them from being able to get on the network and being able to succeed. And I don't necessarily think it's about pushing everybody to rush to S1 as quickly as possible, but basically kind of moving things out of the way for those controllers who are, do have that passion and really want to move ahead and be able to step up to that next level.
All right, thanks a lot. And let's go ahead and move on to the next question, again from Cam. Thanks, Cam, for the question. How does making someone jump through courses and examinations help keep them retained? People want to control and fly for fun versus become a job and devote extensive time to achieve the next rating. And I think Mr. Manny is looking to take that one. Manny?
Yes, I can take it. So that goes back to engagement. It goes back to the student's appetite for exactly what they want to learn. You bring up a very good point, and I would just return to my answer about the different levels of aerospace. I see minor aerospace as a way for someone to get onto the network, get engaged, earn their ratings, and start controlling without the complexity of either restricted airspace or major airspace. And I don't feel that we have to train everyone as if they want to be a controller in major airspace. And whoever mentioned the comment just a second ago about removing the robot blocks, that was perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about speed for speed's sake. I'm talking more about efficiency and putting people where in the lane they want to be in to learn what they want to learn in the most efficient way possible.
I have one comment on that last question real quick before we move on. Um, Keep in mind, Cam, that we're also tasked with uh, the job of trying to figure out a way to make it so that when these new OBSs and S1s are getting to the facilities, that they're a higher quality. They've already got a very good base level um, of understanding of ATC before they even get to that role. We're trying to make the architects' jobs easier, and in doing that, that was one of our priorities this past year, and our training department did an excellent job with. But part of that goal was to, I mean, that's naturally going to come with a little bit more exams and everything up front, a little bit more involvement from the students up front. So, I mean, that's unavoidable to some extent. But as Manny said, we're just not doing it for no reason. We're not doing it just to make things harder for them. Our goal is to get to reach the goal of making them more efficient when they get to the RTech, all the while still trying to get it done as quick as possible because we do know that they're volunteers.
Thanks, Wes, and everybody else for pitching in on that particular question. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one coming from Scott Galani. Apologies if I messed up the name there. Thanks for the question, Scott. Are there any plans to have VATUSA staff come and do events as controllers with sectors? And looks like Manny's got his hand up again. Manny.
There's no formalized plans, but any staff member is free to and encouraged to control events and interact on the scopes.
Jeremy brought up a really good point earlier as well on the comment of that question. Jeremy said that many of the VATUSA staff are ACE team members or visiting controllers, regularly support event operations, and I agree with that. And I do know that if we get invited to something, we'll absolutely do our best to show up. There's nothing better than getting asked to go do something.
That includes live
And
events too.
yes, yeah, absolutely. I tried to go to. We're talking about scheduling some live events this year, and I was hoping to attend a couple of those. But anyway, Nick, if you wouldn't mind going to Raj's Ace Team question, kind of relates right to that.
So we have
So the
Nick H who raised his hand in Discord. Just FYI.
So we have the Raj's question is: does VATUSA have any plans to revise, audit, or standardize the ACE team? And the answer is yes. Yeah, I am currently working on a new onboarding process for the ACE team, which will be including like a practical sort of test or practice where we can actually see the controllers and what they're doing. Right now, we rely heavily on the ATMs and the TA's recommendation as they know them the best in their Arctic. So, these are the people that VATUSA put in charge of running the Arctic. So we value their opinion highly as they get to interact with them daily. But it is time for a audit and a revision on who is on the ACE team. So that'll be happening very shortly. Raj, hopefully that answers your question. If not, feel free to message me, and glad to answer it further.
Hey, thanks, Ryan. And thanks, everybody else, for sticking around here. Let's get into the next question. From PH, what is VATUSA doing to help younger memberships, age-wise, to be able to participate in the hobby more efficiently whilst not ruining the enjoyment of others? Thanks, PH, for the question.
I can answer that very quickly.
I was going to say I answered that in the comment section too.
Yeah, and I was just going to point out that's one of the reasons why I hired Anthony. I mean, he got me at ITPs, and that's right in his wheelhouse, and he is very sensitive to learners being of all age groups, not one size fits all, individualized.
On to the next question then from Austin. In regards to teams, what headway have they made in allowing them to be recognized staff by USA, including community managers and other facility essential staff?
Oh, Austin, what a great question. I know that this has been something that has been brought up many times lately. We have a lot of people who have teams that are helping out, helping conduct the business of the RTech and are tasked with these micro tasks to accomplish a greater good, right? And that's great. I mean, it's great that we have that support system in place. But then what you guys are realizing are some difficulties on the side of VATUSA because these same team members aren't getting permissions to the things that they need to do their jobs, right? What this boils down to is, and we talked about this before, is that these teams, they don't really, they're not recognized by VATUSA, and because of that, we don't have the permissions in place. We're kind of limited technically right now to, if we wanted to bring them on and give them some sort of an official recognition or an official designation, then we would have to make newer permissions, newer groups, and newer titles and everything else to be able to facilitate that. There's a level of, we haven't gotten there yet. And to answer your question, I don't really know if we're going to get there. It's something that we've been talking about, and it's going to involve more discussions with what we're willing to put out there with more people. With regard to risk, I guess. And there's other aspects too. That's just one of them. So it is something we've been talking about. We continue to. I think, Manny, we just talked about this. What was it? A week ago. So it is something that we're looking at.
Thanks, Wes. Can you hear me now, Wes?
I sure can, Nick. And I'm sorry if I stepped
there-
on you before. I never heard you. So to me, it
No,
just sounded like there was nobody talking.
You're fine. I guess some of the audience couldn't hear me as well, and some people could. So I just quit. If you've seen it on the stream, I just quit Discord and reconnected and thought, hey, and you know what? It works. If all else fails, turn it off and turn it back on again, right? So, okay. Well, we'll mark that one answered, and we are very shortly running out of time here. So let's go on to one last question here. It looks like we've got. And has VATUSA or VATSIM voiced, I'm assuming, their concerns over airport database issues in Microsoft Flight Simulator to Asobo? For example, O'Hare still has 2.7 left in Flight Simulator and physically doesn't have 2.7 center. So Colin, I don't know if anybody else wants to chime on this, but I can. I've been in the tech alpha for Microsoft Flight Simulator since it existed, and I have brought those issues up in the forum, and Asobo is aware of them. I think their current stance, I don't want to quote them, you could go and look on the Flight Simulator forum, but I think when I last read that they were leaving that to the community, more or less, in the freeware packages you can get from like Flight Sim to TO, or for payware developers like FS Dream Team for Chicago O'Hare, for example. Anybody else have anything on that one before we move on? No? Okay. All right. So, Manny, I will pass it back to you for a moment if you have any final thoughts before we go on to the next slide.
Well, thank you, Nick. In closing, I want to thank everyone for your attendance. We held on to most of the attendees 2 hours in. That shows me that you all are engaged. You all care a lot about VATSIM, VATUSA, Flight Sim in general. Some of our staff, we're going to San Diego. We're going to be at Flight Sim Expo next weekend. I hope to see some of you there. It's going to be my very first expo. I'm very excited about it. I can probably list on one hand the number of people I have seen in person. I've been in the hobby for 15 years. So I think, Nick, you did a very good job with the presentation. And all of us on staff, we have an open door policy. If we didn't address your question, or you think of a question after the town hall, feel free to send us an email, DM us in Discord, catch us while we're observing up on the network, and we'll be happy to answer it.
Thank you so much, Manny. So in closing up here,
there was one thing I had, Manny, there was a question in there, and I don't know if it's been answered, and I just didn't hear it because I couldn't hear Nick, but I can't find the question now. But somebody wanted to know if your forehead requires waxing, or does it just come naturally? The shine come naturally?
It's all natural. I have Mediterranean type skin.
And you can't tell it from my picture, but I have a bald head that shines naturally too. So I'm right there with you.
The key is we're going to have Anthony, since he's VATUSA 3, shave his head too, and Braden.
I'm as shaved as I will be. I will say this. I need a breather. I know you're concluding, Nick. I'm going to just use a quick restroom break in about 5 minutes. If anybody wants to meet me, I'll be in the group training session room. Thank you all for your time. Thank you guys very, very much. And I'll be at Expo too, so don't be a stranger. Say hi to me. I'm not really that scary.
But Thank you, everybody, and thanks for attending the town hall. For any questions that we didn't get to this evening, you can feel free to email media@vatusa.net, or you can email Manny directly if you like, and that's just vatusa1@vatusa.net. Once again, thanks for attending the town hall. Have a great evening.